The crack of a gunshot echoed through the valley as Lydia Evans collapsed beside the broken gate of her small ranch, the weight of grief and exhaustion finally bringing her to her knees. The wooden slats of the once sturdy entrance lay splintered around her, much like the pieces of her shattered life since losing her husband to a violent fever 3 months prior. Lydia pressed her palms into the dusty earth of the Colorado Territory, spring of 1876, and felt the hot tears streak down her sun-weathered face. At 28, she had already known more sorrow than most women twice her age. The gunshot that had startled her came from nearby, hunting a stark reminder that life went on around her, even as hers felt permanently suspended in mourning. "This gate won't fix itself," she whispered to no one, her voice carrying across the empty yard where chickens pecked indifferently at the ground. Her late husband Thomas had always meant to reinforce the gate before winter set in, but the fever had taken him so quickly. Now spring had arrived, bringing new challenges she faced alone. The sound of hoofbeats drew her attention. Lydia hastily wiped her tears away with the back of her hand, embarrassed to be caught in such a vulnerable state. Pride was sometimes all a widow had left in these unforgiving lands. A tall figure on horseback appeared on the dirt road leading to her property. The stranger slowed his mount as he approached, taking in the scene: the broken gate, the woman kneeling beside it, the visible signs of a ranch struggling to survive without a man's help. "Afternoon, madam," the rider called out, his voice deep but gentle. "Looks like you've got some trouble with your gate there." Lydia stood quickly, brushing the dirt from her skirts. "It's nothing I can't handle, sir," she replied with more confidence than she felt. "Just taking a moment to gather my strength." The man dismounted with an easy grace that spoke of countless hours in the saddle. His dark hat shadowed his face, but as he approached and tipped the brim back, Lydia saw kind eyes in a handsome, weathered face. He couldn't be much older than 35, with the build of a man who worked hard for a living. "Name's Brock Vance," he said, extending a calloused hand. "Was passing through to Silver Creek when I saw your predicament." Lydia hesitated before shaking his hand. "Lydia Evans." Was my husband's ranch, mine now, I suppose." Brock nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Lost him recently, 3 months ago. Fever took him in just a week." The cowboy removed his hat, revealing sun-bleached brown hair. "My condolences, Mrs. Evans. I lost my sister to the same kind of fever 2 years back. Terrible way to go." There was something genuine in his manner that made Lydia relax slightly. Still, she remained cautious. The territories were filled with drifters looking to take advantage of women on their own. Brock surveyed the broken gate. "This looks like it needs more than just a new hinge. The whole post has rotted through at the base." "I'm aware," Lydia said, a hint of defensiveness creeping into her voice. "I just haven't had time to address it properly." "No offense meant, madam," Brock said quickly. "I'd be happy to fix it for you. I've got some tools in my saddlebags, and it looks like you've got plenty of wood in that pile by your barn." Lydia glanced toward the stack of lumber Thomas had cut before his illness. She'd been avoiding looking at it, each log a reminder of plans he'd never complete. "Why would you help a stranger?" she asked, suspicious. Brock shrugged. "My pa raised me to never ride past a problem I could fix, especially not when it concerns a lady's safety. An unprotected entrance like this is just inviting trouble." Lydia considered his offer. The gate did need fixing, and she had been putting it off, overwhelmed by the multitude of tasks facing her each day. Running the small cattle operation alone was exhausting work. "I can pay you a fair wage," she offered, her pride still intact. Brock shook his head. "No need for payment, just maybe a cup of coffee when I'm done if you've got it to spare." After a moment's consideration, Lydia nodded. "Very well, Mr. Vance, I accept your help." As Brock retrieved his tools and began examining the gate more closely, Lydia watched him carefully. There was something reassuring about his methodical approach, the way he assessed the damage before starting any work. He reminded her of Thomas in that way, always thinking before acting. "This'll take a couple hours to do right," Brock explained, rolling up his sleeves to reveal strong forearms. "Need to dig out this rotted post and set a new one proper. Otherwise, you'll just have the same problem come next winter." Lydia nodded. "I should check on my stew. Feel free to call if you need anything." Inside her small but tidy cabin, Lydia stirred the pot of rabbit stew she'd prepared that morning. Through the window, she watched Brock work, his movements efficient and purposeful as he dug around the old gatepost. Something about his presence made the ranch feel different, less empty, somehow. By the time the stew was ready, Brock had removed the damaged post and was measuring for the new one. Lydia brought him a cup of water, which he accepted gratefully. "You've got a nice piece of land here, Mrs. Evans," he commented, wiping sweat from his brow. "Good grazing for cattle." I have about 30 head, Lydia replied. "Not much compared to the big outfits, but it was enough for us." She paused. "For me, I mean." Brock nodded, seeming to understand her slip. 30 head is plenty if managed well. You planning to stay and run it yourself? The question struck Lydia hard. Her brother-in-law in Kansas City had written 3 times already, urging her to sell the ranch and move east. "It's what Thomas would have wanted," he'd insisted, though Thomas had never once suggested such a thing. "This is my home," she said firmly. "I'm not leaving." Brock smiled, and the expression transformed his face, revealing dimples beneath his short beard. "Good for you." Too many folks give up when things get hard. As the afternoon progressed into evening, Lydia found herself sharing the stew with Brock on her small porch. The conversation flowed easily as he told her about his life as a ranch foreman 20 miles north, how he was heading to Silver Creek to purchase supplies and check on cattle prices. "Been working for the Diamond Cross Ranch for 7 years now," he explained. "Good outfit, fair pay. But I've been saving to get my own place someday." "It's worth it," Lydia said, surprising herself with her candor. "Having something that's truly yours, there's no feeling like it." As darkness fell, Brock completed the gate repair, even adding a small sliding lock that would keep it secure against the wind. "I should get going," he said, though he made no immediate move to leave. "Still got a few miles to Silver Creek before nightfall." Lydia felt an unexpected pang at the thought of his departure. The ranch would feel even emptier now, having briefly known the sound of another voice, another presence. "It's getting dark," she found herself saying. "The trail to town can be dangerous at night. I have a small room above the barn where Thomas's ranch hand used to stay. You're welcome to it if you'd like to continue your journey in the morning." Brock hesitated, clearly weighing propriety against practicality. "I wouldn't want to cause any gossip that might harm your reputation, Mrs. Evans." Lydia almost smiled at that. "Mr. Vance, my nearest neighbor, is 3 miles away. Who exactly would be gossiping?" He chuckled at that. "Fair point. If you're certain it's no trouble, I'd be grateful for the accommodation." That night, after showing Brock to the sparse but clean room above the barn, Lydia lay awake in her bed, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of another human moving about her property. There was comfort in it. She realized a sense of security she hadn't felt since Thomas passed. Morning arrived with the crowing of roosters and the smell of coffee. Lydia entered her kitchen to find Brock had already stoked the stove and brewed a pot. "Hope you don't mind," he said, looking slightly embarrassed. "Early habits die hard." "Not at all," she replied, secretly pleased. "It's nice to have coffee waiting for once." They shared a simple breakfast of cornbread and the last of the previous night's stew. As they ate, Brock noticed the calendar on Lydia's wall, marked with notes about cattle rotation and breeding schedules. "You know you're ranching," he observed. Lydia nodded. "I grew up on a farm in Missouri. Came west with Thomas after we married. He taught me the cattle business and I taught him about crop rotation. We made a good team." Her voice caught on the last words and she looked away quickly. "Mrs. Evans," Brock said gently, "before I head to town, I couldn't help but notice your south pasture fence has a section down. Would you mind if I took a look at it before I leave? 'Wouldn't want any of your cattle straying." Lydia knew she should refuse. She'd already accepted too much help from this stranger, and yet the thought of tackling that fence alone had been weighing on her for weeks. "If you have the time to spare, I would appreciate it," she finally said. One repair led to another. The downed fence revealed a leaking water trough that needed caulking. After fixing that, Brock noticed a loose board on the barn door that could injure an animal if not addressed. By midday, he still hadn't left for Silver Creek. "I'm keeping you from your business," Lydia said as they paused for water near the corral. Brock shrugged. "My business can wait another day. The supplies aren't going anywhere." He hesitated, then added, "Truth is, Mrs. Evans, I'm concerned about you managing all this alone. It's not just the work, it's the danger. A woman alone out here is vulnerable." Lydia bristled slightly. "I'm not helpless, Mr. Vance. I can shoot straight and ride well." "I don't doubt it," he replied quickly. "But even the strongest rancher needs help sometimes. That's why we have neighbors and hands." "Well, I don't have either at the moment," she said, her tone sharper than intended. Brock was quiet for a moment. "What if I stayed on for a week or so?" "Just until you get some of these repairs handled. I could send word to my boss I have vacation time coming." Lydia stared at him, speechless. "Why would you do that for someone you've just met?" Brock's eyes were steady as he answered. "Because it's the right thing to do." "And because," he paused, seeming to search for words. "Because I admire your determination, Mrs. Evans. Not many would face what you're facing with such courage." Lydia felt heat rise to her cheeks at the unexpected compliment. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," he replied simply. "Let me help." And so Brock rode to Silver Creek that afternoon, sent his message, purchased supplies including some for the Evans ranch, and returned by sunset. Lydia had prepared a proper dinner this time, her best effort at beef stew and fresh biscuits. The week that followed established a routine. They would rise early, share breakfast, and work side by side on the endless ranch tasks. Brock taught Lydia better techniques for handling the cattle, while she shared her knowledge of gardening and preserving food. In the evenings, they would sit on the porch, sometimes talking, sometimes just enjoying the peaceful sounds of the night. Lydia found herself laughing again, something she hadn't done since Thomas fell ill. Brock had a gift for storytelling, sharing tales of cattle drives and frontier characters that made the time pass swiftly. On the 6th day, as they repaired the roof of the chicken coop together, Lydia realized with a start that she was dreading Brock's departure the next morning. "You've done so much," she said as they hammered shingles under the warm spring sun. "I don't know how to thank you properly." Brock paused in his work, wiping sweat from his brow. "Seeing this place come back to life has been thanks enough. The ranch or me?" Lydia asked before she could stop herself. Their eyes met, and something passed between them, an acknowledgement of the connection that had grown during their days together. "Both," he answered softly. That evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the distant mountains, Brock cleared his throat nervously. "Mrs. Evans, Lydia, if I may, I've been thinking." She turned to him, heart suddenly racing. "Yes." "My position at the Diamond Cross is secure, but my heart's not in it anymore." He looked directly at her. "I've saved enough for a small stake of my own, but not enough for land. What if I proposed a partnership?" Lydia's breath caught. "A partnership. I could stay on here as your foreman officially. Help build up your herd, expand the operation. We could split the profits after expenses." He hurried to add, "I'd continue to sleep above the barn, of course, everything proper and businesslike." Lydia considered his proposal. It made practical sense. With Brock's help, the ranch could not only survive but thrive, yet she sensed there was more to his offer than mere business. "And unofficially?" she asked quietly. Brock's eyes held her steadily. "Unofficially, I'd like the chance to know you better, Lydia Evans. I know it's too soon after your loss, and I respect that completely, but I haven't felt this way about anyone in a long time, maybe ever." Lydia looked away, emotions warring within her. She thought of Thomas, of their love and the life they'd built together. Would he want her to remain alone, struggling to maintain what they'd created, or would he want her to find happiness again, "I need time," she finally said. "But yes to the business partnership, the rest. Let's see where time takes us." Brock's smile was like sunrise breaking over the mountains. "That's more than fair. Thank you for considering it." The days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Brock proved himself an invaluable partner in the ranch operations. Under his care, the cattle flourished, and with his connections in the industry, they secured better prices at market. Lydia found her grief gradually transforming. It didn't disappear. She still missed Thomas deeply, but it changed shape, becoming a quiet acknowledgement of what was rather than an overwhelming presence in her daily life. By midsummer, the ranch was showing real signs of prosperity. Brock had hired 2 young cowboys to help with the expanded herd, building a small bunkhouse for them away from the main house. The repairs were complete, and new projects were underway: an expanded barn, a smokehouse, a proper root cellar. One evening in late July, as they sat on the porch after a particularly successful day, Brock reached over and tentatively took Lydia's hand. "I've been thinking about my other proposal," he said softly. "The unofficial one." Lydia didn't pull away. "I've been thinking about it too." And his voice held a mixture of hope and uncertainty. "I'm ready to see where this leads, Brock. Thomas will always have a place in my heart, but my heart is bigger than I realized. There's room for new love too." Brock's face lit up with such joy that Lydia couldn't help but smile in return. He leaned toward her slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wished. Instead, she met him halfway. Their first kiss was gentle, a promise of more to come. When they parted, Lydia felt lightheaded but certain. This was right. This was what healing truly meant. The courtship that followed was proper but passionate. Brock moved deliberately, always respectful of Lydia's feelings and the memory of her first husband. They rode together across the expanding ranch property, picnicked by the creek that marked the western boundary, and danced in the kitchen to tunes Brock played on his harmonica. By the harvest moon of October 1876, Lydia knew she was completely in love with Brock Vance. The realization didn't diminish what she had felt for Thomas. It simply existed alongside it, a different kind of love for a different chapter of her life. On a crisp autumn evening, as they walked among the aspen trees whose leaves had turned golden, Brock stopped and took both of Lydia's hands in his. "I've been saving something," he said, reaching into his pocket. He withdrew a simple gold ring with a small pearl. "It was my mother's. She told me to give it to the woman who captured my heart completely." Lydia's eyes filled with tears as he continued. "Lydia Evans, you are the strongest, most beautiful woman I have ever known. Would you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Not just my business partner, but my partner in everything life brings us." Through her tears, Lydia nodded. "Yes, Brock. Yes, I will marry you." They were wed on Christmas Day in the small church in Silver Creek, with the entire community in attendance. The ranch hands served as groomsmen, and the shopkeeper's wife stood as Lydia's matron of honor. The celebration afterward at the ranch lasted well into the night, with music and dancing and more food than any of them could eat. That night, as they stood in the bedroom that was now theirs to share, Brock took Lydia's face gently between his hands. "When I found you by that broken gate, I had no idea I was finding my future," he whispered. "Thank you for letting me fix it and for fixing something broken in me that I didn't even know needed mending." Lydia leaned into his touch. "We fixed each other, I think." Spring came again to the ranch, now officially named the Double Heart. The gate that Brock had repaired still stood strong, a symbol of their beginning. As they stood beside it one anniversary of their first meeting, Lydia placed Brock's hand on her slightly rounded belly. "The Double Heart is about to get a little bigger," she said with a smile. Brock's eyes widened, then filled with such tenderness that Lydia felt her own eyes grow moist. "A baby, we're having a baby," Lydia nodded. "In about 6 months' time. What do you think about that, Mr. Vance?" He lifted her off her feet in a gentle embrace, spinning her once before setting her carefully back down. "I think we're the luckiest people in the entire Colorado territory." Their daughter, Hope, was born that autumn a strong, healthy child with her father's dimples and her mother's determined spirit. As Lydia nursed her in the rocking chair Brock had crafted, she reflected on the journey that had brought them here. "She's perfect," Brock said, kneeling beside the chair to gaze at his daughter in wonder. "She is," Lydia agreed, "and so is this life we've built." The years passed with the rhythm of the seasons. The Double Heart Ranch prospered under their joint stewardship. Hope was joined by a brother, Thomas Brock, 2 years later. The children grew strong in the clean mountain air, learning ranching from both parents, who worked as true partners in all things. By 1885, the Double Heart was one of the most respected operations in the region. Brock and Lydia had expanded to 300 head of cattle, added sheep, and even planted an apple orchard that produced the sweetest fruit in the territory. On the 10th anniversary of their first meeting, Brock surprised Lydia by rebuilding the gate at the entrance to their property. This one was sturdy oak with intricate carvings, 2 hearts intertwined on each post. "So we never forget where we started," he told her as they stood admiring his handiwork, their children playing nearby. Lydia leaned against his shoulder, her hand finding his as naturally as breathing. "I could never forget. That broken gate was the best thing that ever happened to me." "To us," Brock corrected gently, placing a kiss on her temple. As the sun set behind the mountains, casting long shadows across their land, Lydia reflected on how a single moment of despair had led to a lifetime of joy. The widow who had fallen beside her broken gate had found not just someone to fix it, but someone to help her build a new life stronger and more beautiful than she could have imagined. "To us," she agreed, turning in his arms to kiss him properly, "and to all the years ahead." And as their children called for them to come see a newborn foal in the stable, Lydia and Brock walked hand in hand across the yard of the home they had built together, their hearts, like the gate that marked their beginning, standing strong against whatever storms might come.